Hi, welcome to our weekly consumer phone-in. We want to hear from you about insurance today. Are you getting good value and service from your insurance company? Call us now if you'd like to come on the programme. Ring 03700 100 444. We're talking about it today because the consumer group Which has said that the experience of trying to make a claim against some insurers can be more distressing than the original incident. Which is taking action against insurers today with what's called a super complaint. It's calling for action on home and travel insurance in particular. Sam Richardson, the deputy editor of Which, is going to be with us throughout this programme. So Sam, welcome. First of all, what is a super complaint?
Yeah, so a super complaint, only a few organisations can make it. They're designated by the government, including Which, the charitable consumer organisation. And what's crucial is the Financial Conduct Authority, who we're making the complaint to, has to respond to us within 90 days, even if they go on to reject the complaint. And we haven't made one for 9 years, but we think the home and travel insurance markets are in such a state at the moment that action is needed.
What's wrong with them in particular?
So we're seeing quite a lot of claims be rejected. It's only about 72% of claims that are actually paid out. And we're seeing awful claims handling, people being left out of their homes for months on end. I was talking to a couple today where it took 6 months before the builders were sent after a house fire. And in the meantime, she was heavily pregnant. So it has enormous effects. You know, it's not just a financial product. People's lives are really put on hold while they wait.
Sam Richardson from Which, just jump into this conversation when you want to. We're leaving your mic open, but I will come back to you. I should say the FCA says it'll respond to your super complaint in due course and has been focused on raising standards. The FCA says they recently reviewed home and travel claims handling and they uncovered some problems and they will be holding the companies and their senior managers accountable for changes needed. What do you think about the value and service you were getting from your insurance company? Here's the number to call, 03700 100 444. Now, Sam Richardson from Which has just mentioned poor service when there is a fire. So let's go first of all to Jonathan in London because he has had that experience. Jonathan, tell us what's happened to you.
Good morning. Good afternoon, Winifred.
Hi.
Well, our neighbour we lived in a semi-detached house, and our neighbour had a fire 3 years ago in July. And we made a claim, and to start with, it seemed to be very well handled. The insurance company, who was one of the UK's largest, appeared very quickly, and their loss adjuster appeared and made all the right noises. But frankly, from there, it has spiralled downhill to a point where we're on the point of taking legal action against them because of the slowness of their service and the poor quality and their determination, frankly, to slide out of their responsibilities.
So you say it's gone on for 3 years? 3 years?
Yes.
Yeah. Are you able to live in your own home?
Well, fortunately, we have another home.
Well, that is lucky. Well, wow. You are lucky,
Because without it, by now we would have been sunk, as what they call the alternative accommodation provision has now expired, and the insurance company don't seem willing to extend it. So I believe this is a tactic, or I've certainly heard that this is a tactic to get insured claimants to agree quickly and at their cost so as to quickly find somewhere to live.
Jonathan, I realise we could make the whole programme today about just your one case, but briefly, if you would, what's the nub of it then? What is it that you can't agree with them?
Well, simply the financial settlement. We had to apply for planning consent to have the house rebuilt. We had tenders out. The tenders had slight issues with them, so we re-tendered. They've chosen to ignore the re-tenders despite the full evidence that we have given them. They have decided unanimously that they wanted to make a full and final settlement, having previously said the contrary, and then they have put forward a full and final settlement. In fact, they paid the money over to us at a level which is completely inadequate to rebuild the house. Okay. So we are continuing to dispute this, but they are being fairly trenchant in their views, and every interaction with them is painfully slow as it goes through their intermediary, their loss adjuster, who can take 6 to 8 weeks to revert on any given email that you might send them.
How much would you say you're down, Jonathan? Sorry.
How much?
How much are you down? Yeah.
Well, I should think the total value of the claim is probably 650,000. They've offered us just over 400.
That's a lot.
So
250,000. Yeah.
We're not prepared to proceed on that basis.
Sam, was that Yorketeer trying to come in?
Yes, sorry, I was going to jump in here because this issue of cash settlements is really widespread. In fact, the regulator has warned about this. Firstly, because it's very difficult to estimate, how much complicated building work will cost. And many of us might have got work done to our houses a few years ago, but prices have really spiked in the meantime. And often the insurer can get a cheaper price from builders because of their arrangements than people can. And also because some people are vulnerable and not able to, manage a whole project. Which the insurer really should be doing. Ultimately, you are paying them to put things right when they go wrong. And it's really disappointing to see these very kind of undervalued settlements.
Jonathan, thanks so much for coming on. Thank you. And obviously, we all wish you luck with it and we hope it works out for you. Are you getting good value and service from your insurance company? Here's the number to call, 03700 100 444. Let's go to our other two callers now, Carol in Berkshire and Caroline in Kingston, because you both have problems, don't you, with or have had problems with travel insurance, which is another thing that is part of this super complaint by Which to the regulator, the Financial Conduct Authority. So, Carol, tell us what happened to you.
Well, we went on holiday. I had a family holiday with 2 of my grown-up kids and my partner. We went to the Pelion Peninsula in Greece. It was September 2023, and it was when the Medicane hit. It was this Mediterranean/hurricane. It started in the afternoon. It went through the night. By the next morning, everything was wiped out. The roads were washed away. There was a stay-in-place order from the police. It was horrible. It was horrible. It was horrible for us, but we were in a place that was nice and safe, but there was no electricity, no water. But, we didn't lose our livelihoods. You could see in the village that everything had washed into the sea. It was really, really horrible. And it was clear that we couldn't travel to get our flight back home from Volos. And we contacted EasyJet, and they said the flight was still going. I guess they had people coming from other parts of Greece that could get on. So we couldn't be refunded for those flights. So we were very lucky. We were able to get out after a few days because the landlord had a friend whose wife was British and needed to go to the UK, and they had a boat. And we basically went to a different port, and we were able to get home. But I had to rebook tickets, flights, at, of course, much, much higher price than we had paid originally. And I thought it would be a very straightforward case for the travel insurance because we couldn't fly. So I started with my travel insurance. My travel insurance was through my banking account. And they found every excuse in the book to turn it down. They kept saying I needed more documentation. I looked because I knew I was coming online. I went and found all my correspondence. I have 40 different pieces of correspondence with them. I mean, it was all emails. Yeah. But they found every excuse. And, for example, your claim was turned down because your protection doesn't cover you when you miss your departure due to unexpected delays you might experience causing you to be late. I filed the claim again because it wasn't because we were late. It was because
you were in a hurricane.
Was closed. We were in a hurricane. Then it was turned down again. You're covered only under this benefit if you miss at least half of the trip due to adverse weather or natural disaster. We weren't claiming for a resort holiday where our holiday was ruined. All I wanted was this flight paid for. In the end, I finally gave up because it went on for about 6 months. I think there were so many complaints to the bank about this company that all of a sudden that company didn't exist really anymore. Another insurance company was taken on. So it was a real mess. And I must say, my partner went to his travel insurance, Virgin Travel, and within 2 weeks he had his money back.
Yeah, so it just shows you it isn't really that what happened to you was outside of insurance.
No, they asked for so many pieces of documentation. It really got to the point that they almost asked for my birth certificate.
They kind of wore you out.
Yeah. And I don't give up. I never give up because if I feel if it's a justified cause, just keep going. But it was like hitting a brick wall. There was no telephone number that you could call. There was not even a chat box. There was nothing. It was just it was into the void. Yeah.
So that's what you mean, Sam, when you say that for some people this whole business is worse than the experience that they're claiming for.
Yes, definitely. And, the point with waiting and complaining, I'd always recommend people, do a complaint, get everything in writing as well. And if necessary, you can escalate it to the Financial Ombudsman Service. But of course, if you're out of your home and waiting to get back in there, or you've lost a huge amount of money, perhaps, trying to get back from a difficult trip, you may not be able to wait. And unfortunately, insurers are really playing on that at the moment, their power over people, because the insurer is very happy to delay. And it really makes it an unfair playing field.
Carol, thank you. Caroline, tell us what happened to you.
Yes, well, we booked a holiday to Egypt in February this year, and I upped my annual insurance policy, and I had to add an extra £276 for a cruise in Egypt, and because we were outside Europe. So the whole policy cost me over £400. And then 2 days before we were due to leave...
That is a lot of money. Sorry to interrupt, but £400, it's not as if you bought a cheap policy, is it?
No, it was a very expensive one, and I wanted to make sure it was all good because, it was Egypt, and I wanted just to make sure that we were covered. Then 2 days before we were due to go, my husband damaged his knee, and we couldn't go. So we went to the doctors, we got a certificate, I submitted my claim, we cancelled the whole thing, and obviously we couldn't get any cancellation from the holiday company because it was too near the time of departure. Anyway, to cut a very long story short, again, like Carol, lots of emails, no phone calls, etc. But I kept pursuing them, saying, what's happening? They did ask about various medical conditions. And eventually, after 3 months, they agreed to pay out 56% of the claim.
Why 56%? It's a funny figure.
I don't know why. They said that there was an undeclared condition that we hadn't declared on our form. And I said, well, I wrote back I just said, what is the undeclared condition? Because I thought, what have we missed out? They'd had all our medical notes from the doctor, etc. And I thought, well, what was it we missed out? Anyway, again, lots of emails, no phone calls, all emails, backwards and forwards, me pursuing them all the time, saying, what is the undeclared condition? What is happening? We still don't know. And then just out of the blue, 5 months after the original claim, they said, here's the rest of your money, and we pay it in full. And so we did get all the money back from our holiday, but huge amount of stress. And I'm actually still in negotiation with them because I don't understand why they only gave us, after 3 months, they only gave us 56%, and they haven't explained what this undeclared condition was and how come another 2 months later they say, oh, it's all right, here's your money.
Caroline, thanks so much for coming on, and good work anyway, being persistent enough and getting what was due to you. Are you getting good value and service from your insurance company? Give us a call, ring 03700 100 444. If you prefer to message us, you can email or text. Email you and yours at bbc.co.uk, text 84844. Lots of messages coming in. This one about customer service from Penny Histed. She says, I changed my home insurance this year from one provider to another using a price comparison site. A few weeks after moving, I had a letter advising that they were increasing the premium and adding a charge for making changes because of a discrepancy in the number of years of my no claims bonus. I tried to contact them because I have never falsified any information on an insurance company or anywhere else. I sat on the phone listening to announcements for stressfully very long periods of time, being advised I was another crazy number in the queue. And then suddenly there came the point where I was cut off. I think that's happened to us all, hasn't it? Let's unpick some of the history here. The insurance regulator, the Financial Conduct Authority, took a look at insurance firms this year and it published a report about them in July, and it set out some problem areas. Now, those include storm claims, where sometimes insurers don't define what a storm is, and then they're only paying around a third of those claims. Poor claims handling, particularly where the service has been outsourced to claims centres, particularly where those claims centres are abroad. Offering cash settlements that are not in the best interest of customers. We heard that from Jonathan, one of our first callers. And charging too much for allowing customers to pay their premiums in monthly instalments. There is going to be a final report at the end of this year, and then the FCA will tell insurers what to do to improve things. But in the meantime, Which has put in this thing a super complaint, really, I suppose, basically telling the FCA to get on with it. And the FCA has to reply to that super complaint within 90 days. Sam Richardson from Which is our guest today. So, Sam, you don't think that what the FCA has done so far is good enough, right?
No, because they've done 2 reviews of this market in 2014 and again in summer this year, finding all the issues you've just described. I don't know what more research is needed for them to start taking action, including actual perhaps fines against insurance companies, particularly bad statistics for, say, complaints about them, for low claims acceptance rates. Well, all of this evidence they need is already in place. Whilst another market study would be helpful, it needs to go alongside kind of action now because people are getting harmed now.
Well, let's talk about some of those problems that the FCA has already identified and that you were very concerned about. Some of them we've dealt with already through our first callers. But let's talk about this business of storms. How can you make sure when you're buying home insurance that you really are insured for storms? Because we get a lot of storms now, don't we?
Yeah, so you need to read the policy wording. And potentially, call up the insurer and ask, what do you mean by this? Get them to really spell it out. The issues were often around wind speed. It needed to be a certain wind speed to be defined as a storm. And then there were very strange ones with exactly how quickly water enters your home in a flood, for instance.
Yeah.
And of course, I would always recommend reading the policy wording. Sorry, that is something we should all be doing when buying insurance. But I think we also need to be reasonable here in what we expect normal people to do. These documents can be extremely complicated. I think there's an argument here that insurers should be designing insurance products that are easy to understand so people will know if they're covered.
Well, how long have we been hearing that? That's not going to happen, is it? And their answer to that would be that it's a complicated business. Let's talk about this business of what happens when you can't really afford to pay a big premium up front. The regulator has already said that some of these companies are charging more to let you pay in instalments than it costs them to offer that service.
Yes, so this is perhaps more of an issue in car insurance. It can also be a problem in home. The issue being that, compare it to a credit card, and some of these insurance interest rates we're paying monthly are higher than a credit card.
Really? Because credit cards can be pretty high.
Yeah. No, we've seen interest rates in the kind of 20 and 30%. If I buy something on a credit card and then I ride off into the sunset and never pay them back for my sofa or whatever it was, then they can, they're in big trouble. That's essentially why they need to charge interest to account for those borrowers who don't pay back. If I don't pay my insurance premium 1 month, they just cut off my insurance. It just finishes. Now, of course, there are, costs in administering monthly payments, and there will be the odd time that someone makes a claim and then stops paying their monthly payments, but it's not nearly equivalent to these very high interest rates that are being charged. And essentially, and actually I'm paraphrasing the regulator itself here, this is a tax on being poor. Because you can't afford to make that initial annual payment, you suddenly have to pay much more to spread it out.
Sam, thanks. I'll come back to you. Just jump into this conversation whenever you want to. Are you getting good value and service from your insurance company? Call us 03700 100 444. Some messages coming in. Let me read you a positive one from Penny Bursary. She says, I went to America earlier this year and my hearing aid broke, leaving part of it lodged in my ear. The medical centre charged me $170 to remove it. I rang my travel insurers, NFU Mutual, who, subject to a £50 excess, settled my claim within a couple of days without even requesting sight of the invoice. It was a brilliant service. I do wonder now, though, how it will affect the renewal costs. Let me go to Nick Schiller in Norwich, because Nick also has a positive story, I think. Nick, tell us what happened to you.
Good afternoon, Sherry. Well, I had a rather unpleasant accident on the beach at Sea Palling, which is just east of here.
What happened to you?
We were getting a dive boat out of the water, and I managed to put myself, after 55 years of experience, in exactly the wrong place. And an unexpected wave came in, picked the boat up, and threw it at me.
Ooh.
So not good. I ended up between the trailer and the boat. Actually went through the trailer, which was very good because I ended up protected by it. But in so doing, I smashed my tibia and fibia in my right leg really quite badly.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, it wasn't great. But my dive buddies and the RNLI and the emergency services all did an amazing job looking after me on the beach. And then subsequently, the NHS did some great surgery, and I'm on the way to recovery. But it's going to be a long path. But
your insurance company too, they came up trumps. They helped you.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a result of this, you won't be surprised to hear that all my gear had to be cut off me. So 2 wetsuits, boots, and my sunglasses actually got smashed in the accident itself. So I wasn't sure whether that would be covered under my household all risks section. So I gave eSure, our insurers, a ring, and they confirmed that it would be covered. Directed me to their online portal where I uploaded receipts where I had them and quotes and links to the components that had been lost. The next day I got a phone call from eSure just clarifying a couple of elements. The same day I got confirmation that the claim was fine and the money was in my bank within 72 hours.
And this was all on your home insurance, did you say? You were not insured for the diving, for the diving activity itself, no?
No, I am insured for the diving activity, but that is a different insurance. But in terms of the property, the personal possessions, no, it was under the all-risk section of the household insurance, the contents insurance.
Did you even know you had it, Nick?
What, the insurance?
No, did you know you were covered? For what?
I wasn't sure because so I thought the glasses would definitely be covered because they were broken by accident. So that's what the all risks is there for. But because the emergency services had cut the rest of the stuff off me, so it wasn't an accident, it was an active event. I thought it might not be, but the insurance company took the view that it was a result of an accident and there was no alternative, so it was an insurable risk.
Do you know how much you paid for that bit of cover? Because sometimes these are things we take away, aren't they? When you get a price and it looks huge, you go through and think, what could I do without?
I can't tell you exactly. I'm guessing, I think the whole insurance was about 400 and something a year. I'm guessing it's about 50 quid, something like that.
Yeah.
I'd have to get it out and have a proper look. But I can't fault it. The service was excellent.
And did it result in your premium going up? Because that's the thing with insurance, isn't it? Yours,
Don't know yet. I mean, so it's my partner organised it because she used to be in insurance. We actually did it through a compare website, but we didn't take the cheapest one. We looked carefully at things like Trustpilot reviews and things and went, no, thank you. But it was still, it was towards the lower end of the potential cost.
Yeah.
I could chip in here.
Yeah, do Sam,
Winifred, just on the point of accidental damage, as you say, it's not included in so many policies, but it's actually one of the most common claims that people make. So I would say to people when they're weighing up whether to include it, it is probably the bit of home insurance you're going to use. And then just the other thing to observe with this case is, the very quick way the insurer dealt with it and, just got it done effectively and didn't quibble over every detail. Of course, we don't expect to be covered for every single thing. It was, fortunate in this case that you were, but at least they gave you an answer very quickly.
That's so interesting, Sam, isn't it? All I was thinking is so interesting that accidental damage is the bit of the policy that you're likely to need.
Yeah, because that's, especially, you knock over a TV in your home. This was quite an unusual example, but there's so many ways around the home. Or, for those of us doing DIY, you put a drill for a pipe. Suddenly you'll wish you had that part of the insurance, and for 50 quid, it's probably worth it.
Nick, did you just want to say something else quickly?
Yeah, I was going to say, not only did they not quibble, I mean, one of the requirements of the insurance was demonstrating that you owned the item. So in some cases, like my glasses, I had the original invoice, so it was nice and easy. But for some of the stuff, I didn't have any receipts or anything. And they basically took the line that said, well, look, the big items, which is the wetsuits and the glasses, you've confirmed, because there are photographs and all receipts. The little ones, we're not going to argue about it. It's clearly part of the rig, and so be it.
Well, that's good.
So not only were they not quibbling, they were actively helpful, frankly.
OK, well, that's a nice story to hear. Thanks, Nick. Are you getting good service and value from your insurance company? Give us a call, 03700 100 444. Let me bring in Linda Taylor-Cantrell, who is in Exmouth. Linda, your insurance claim is about subsidence, I don't know how you say that. And that's a thing, isn't it, at the moment, because we've had such a hot summer, particularly if you live where there's clay and you live where there's trees. Tell us what's happened to you.
OK, so in the summer of 2022, we discovered the first crack in our wall, suspected subsidence. We basically monitored that for about a month, realised loads and loads of cracks were continuing to appear. So we then informed the LV, our insurance company, in the August of 2022. Well, they sent... They immediately sent out a letter from the loss adjusters to say that all remedial works will be completed by August of 2024, which was bizarre and kind of cart before the horse. No investigation has been done, no nothing at this point, nobody had been out. But
let's just go back. So I'm not sure I caught that. It happened this year and they said they would fix it this year.
No, it happened in 2022.
OK.
2022, 3 years ago.
OK, it's a long time ago.
Yeah, 3 years ago we reported it. And they immediately sent us a letter, the loss adjusters, Sedgwick sent us a letter to state that all remedial works for the subsidence will be completed by 2024. It seemed like it was a very standard letter that had probably been mistakenly sent to us instead of somebody else. It was only in the December of 2022 that they sent out an arborist because they'd asked us if we got any trees in our garden. Well, obviously we got about 20 trees at the time, and there's a 200-year-old TPO'd oak tree in our front garden, which is the furthest tree away from our property. The other 20 were closer, but they'd said the arborist came out, took one look at the oak tree and said, it'll be the oak tree, that's what's causing the subsidence, we'll have that down in no time. So we placed an immediate complaint with our insurers LV to say we did not want to lose this beautiful oak tree, and the loss adjusters just then sent out ground investigation team, which was early 2023. At the same time, they actually sent out a guy to put some plugs in the walls to start monitoring the cracks. And then the house was supposedly being investigated, but not all cracks. It was only a few cracks that were being monitored, the very first few that had appeared. But the ground investigation team, they dug a metre-deep trial pit hole by the foundations of the house and went near the tree and did what's called a 5-metre borehole. And that's sent to the lab, and that is meant to look at the soil types, and it's looking for tree roots. And they found no tree roots by the house, but did find lack of foundations, which were inadequate, and the fact that we were all sat on red silt clay. Sedgwick's informed us that in order to mitigate the loss of the oak tree, which we were protesting about, they said that we should remove all the other 20 trees, shrubs, everything, even down to a rosemary bush and some roses. So we removed everything in March of 2023. By the summer of 2023, our son, who is epileptic and deafblind, we suddenly realised, having stripped everything out, he was only left with this one oak, the shade of this one oak. He's also vitamin deficient deficient as well. So he needs a certain amount of sunlight in order to for his body to produce vitamin D. And so by May of this year, our neighbours suddenly said, "Oh, did you realise there is an application gone in to fell your oak tree, and it looks like it's from your insurers." So this was quite bizarre to us. So we made another complaint, but this is the first we've heard of our insurance intentions. And the report, but it was the first time that we actually saw these reports from the trial pit and from the borehole. So we actually started to look at them. I'm an engineer. My husband is a building surveyor. But I cannot stress enough how you don't need to be a qualified professional to pick out and highlight the mistakes, which generate false information and misleading data.
What do you believe? Sorry to hurry you through your story. Just always happens about this time now. We start to get a lot of calls coming in. What do you think is the answer? Do you believe your house needs to be underpinned?
Absolutely, 100% underpin, which is what we told them in 2022. But they've been playing this massive sort of ignorance game.
You think they're deliberately? You believe them to be deliberately delaying
100%.
it? We knew that
100%.
because we knew that you were coming on. Sorry to interrupt. We did ask them. We approached them, and LV said they're owned by Alliance, LV General Insurance. They say they've contacted you now to try to discuss alternative solutions for stabilising your home. So it looks like you might get your underpinning after all. But you think the whole thing was just?
No, that actually doesn't mean that. On the 1st of July, we had an all professionals meeting at the house where they promised to pull the application that they put in to fell the tree, and they also promised to underpin the house. That didn't happen on the 4th of August because of all the arguments that we presented and our professionals presented, because for transparency, we went to and employed an engineer, an arborist, an ecologist to do their own reports on the land and the tree and the building. And we presented that to our tree officers and the planning committee. And on the 4th of August, they agreed with us and denied the application that was made by the insurance company to fell our tree. We are still waiting with bated breath for that appointment, that arrangement, that we've had so much media cover over our tree that...
Yeah, people love trees, don't they? No one wants to see the end of a 200-year-old oak tree, do they?
100%. But the statement that continually keeps coming out from the insurance companies is they're there, don't worry, it's all better, we're going to negotiate, it's fine. It isn't fine, we're still waiting, we're still here, we're running closely into the 4th year of this nightmare now, and nobody's coming forth to actually sort this out. And so what we are hearing, though, and who is coming forward to us is hundreds of other people who are in the same position as we are, using with problems with the same loss adjusters, different insurers, because all these different insurers using the same loss adjusters, Sedgwicks and PRI. So I just want to say to everybody, I'm sorry I've not replied to you yet, but we will get back to you. But there is you need to speak to us on Facebook and get to meet groups like Canopy and the Haringey Tree Protectors, the Street Tree. We're all there waiting for your stories, because I think it's about time which got hold of this and really exposed what is going on. They are culling thousands of trees, and because they're implicating them in subsidence claims when it is not the tree that is the problem.
Okay,
once you fell a tree, the clay then the roots shrink and the clay becomes a bigger problem. It just doesn't cure the problem.
I'm going to let you go. Thank you. It's a very well told and very well explained. I think this is probably a good moment to bring in Mark Shepherd, who speaks for the insurance industry. He's the head of general insurance policy at their association, the Association of British Insurers. Mark Shepherd, we're talking about this today because Which has brought this super complaint, a special kind of complaint that they're allowed to make under consumer law to the regulator, the Financial Conduct Authority, about home and travel insurance in particular. That story that we have just heard from Linda, the trees and the subsidence, people can be really shocked, can't they, when they call the insurers in about something like subsidence, to find that it seems to be about doing the cheapest job rather than about finding what the real cause of the problem is, and that it can go on, it can linger on and on for years and years and years.
Well, absolutely sympathise with those who have had a bad experience with their insurer in the handling of their claim. But just to provide a bit of context to this, and a bit of context to the Which super complaint as well, is that home insurers have handled over 500,000 to 500,000 home insurance claims in 2024 at a cost of £3.1 billion. So, of course, there will be some examples where there is a poor experience. But my reassurance to listeners would be that the majority of people actually do have a good experience with their insurer when they're going through a claim. So what I don't want to happen is that people feel disheartened or put off taking out the vital protection or the vital safety that insurance can bring.
We've got limited time, so let's quickly run through some of the problems that have been raised. So this particular problem with home insurance for storm damage, 2/3 of claims were rejected last year, were not paid last year. Some were rejected, some people just went away. We guess from what we've heard because it went on for so long. Tell me why storm damage is a particular problem.
Well, the issue with storm damage claims is often down to, can be down to a misunderstanding of what insurance is for. So insurance is not a maintenance contract. It's there to protect you or provide insurance against damage caused by specified perils. So the example that I would give is that if there is wind in the area where loose roof tiles, for example, are already dislodged. The insurance is there not for the upkeep of your roof. It's there for whenever violent winds or storms cause damage to that property. So clearly insurers will need to make sure that there has been a storm, a significant level of damage that's been caused by that storm in that area and on that property. And I think some of the explanation as to why there is a low proportion of claims that have received a financial settlement is actually when it comes to storm claims, they may be high in volume, but they can often be for low amounts. So there would be minor damage caused, and people just may not feel that it's worthwhile to pursue that claim, particularly when they find out what the excess is.
Travel insurance, a fifth of claims rejected last year. Why is travel insurance a particular problem?
Well, the vast majority of travel insurance claims, as you see, 4/5 are actually paid out.
They are, but I mean, a fifth is a lot, and 1 in 5 is a lot. And if you're in that 1 in 5, you're very disappointed, as we heard from Carol and Caroline, our first couple of callers.
Sure, absolutely. And I'm not saying that improvements cannot be made here. And I think, some of your examples that I've thrown into the show suggest that there are improvements could be made, and we'll continue to work with regulators and others to do that. But specifically on travel insurance, the main issue that we see as why claims are rejected are due to a lack of pre-existing medical conditions being declared. And if that then links to the problem that you've had when you're abroad and on your holiday, then clearly the insurer hasn't been able to take that risk into account when they've charged the inappropriate premium for you to take out that policy. So do make sure that you declare any existing medication that you're taking or any pre-existing conditions that you've had to your insurer before you take out that travel insurance policy.
Okay. People are surprised, aren't they, when they ring to try to make a claim and they find that customer service has been outsourced to other companies. Sometimes someone will answer and they'll ask which insurance company you're with because they're acting for a whole load of different insurance companies. Why has that happened, that outsourcing?
Well, I mean, insurers will use third parties and other contractors, particularly specialist contractors, to deal with the needs of that particular claim. So
it's cheaper, isn't it? It's just cheaper than employing them yourselves. But it leads to poorer customer service because they don't work for you.
Well, I think what's important there is good communication. So good communication from the insurer across the range of companies that they might need used in order to provide their customer with a service, but also making sure that when elements of the claim are outsourced and third parties are used, the customer understands who they need to engage with and indeed are kept up to date on that process through every step in the claim so that they know when contractors are arriving, when works are going to be done, and ultimately when the issue is going to be resolved, and they can hopefully get back on their feet, back in their homes, and back in their businesses as quickly as possible.
Do you think that price comparison websites have created a market where price is everything, and the true value or lack of true value in what you've bought is sometimes hidden in the small print?
Well, I would certainly say that customers should think about the product and the product to meet their needs.
But are your members developing products that can come top of the searches? That's the point, isn't it? You develop a project. We had a guy on once who the excess was, 150 quid. Only when he came to claim did he realise it was per person. So the excess was worth more than the value of his holiday. He got it on a price comparison site. It looked good. He didn't really understand it, but it had been developed to come top of the search list.
It's true. People should be looking to buy products that meet their needs rather than just on price alone. But the reality is that price is a factor for people. I mean, you have programmes on your show where actually you're talking about the cost and price of insurance going up. So price will be a factor that insurers compete on, and insurers will look to make sure that they offer good value products. But there are a range of products out there in a highly competitive market for people to be able to shop around and find a product that meets their needs.
Mark Shepherd from the Association of British Insurers, thank you so much for that. Let me just read you another positive out from Joanna in Ascot. She says, last year I broke both bones in my arm, dislocated my wrist while I was in Morocco, had surgery, and I couldn't contact the insurance company until 6 days later. And I had to explain that I wouldn't be able to return to the UK until 2 weeks after that. The day after I got home, Aviva phoned me to say I could make a claim over the phone, and they paid me in full within 2 weeks. So obviously there are some good stories. Let's hear from Jane in Lancashire, because we were just hearing from Mark Shepherd. I was just talking with him about outsourcing and whether outsourcing of jobs is sensible. Jane, you used to work as an insurance broker, is that right?
I did, yes. Hello.
Hi.
I'm a retired insurance broker, actually a chartered insurance broker, 35 years experience. But the outsourcing of claims particularly struck home with me. I had a claim on my late father's house. Unfortunately, the house suffered an impact to an up and over garage door by a food delivery firm.
Okay.
It was a ridiculous situation, but basically the food delivery firm couldn't get into the garage, broke into the garage through the up and over door and damaged the door to the extent that it needed to be replaced. The insurance company, which I'm not going to name, they actually put a claims expert firm on it. They outsource the handling of it, probably done for the right reasons, because tapping into expert knowledge and reducing costs and so on. But the quote to replace those door was £3,000. I managed to get, it's ridiculous. I managed to get a quote by a local firm of £1,500 to replace both doors. So I went ahead and got the doors replaced for £1,500. And then, of course, I wanted to get the insurer to get the money back from the responsible third-party food delivery firm. To put this into context, we actually had Ring doorbell footage of the act occurring.
Yes, so there's no dispute about what had happened?
No, but the thing is, they didn't want to talk to me or let me know what the level of communication was with the responsible food delivery firm.
What happened, Jane? What was the upshot of it all? How did it work out in the end?
The upshot was that the insurers refused to recover the costs of the replacement garage door at the £1,500 that I'd got it done at.
Do you think that they were just doing that because it was a way of wriggling out, or do you think they genuinely thought?
I think they were doing it to save costs because the food delivery firm didn't say, hey, yeah, it was us, sorry, and pay up, which they should have done. They would have needed to appoint solicitors and spent money on pursuing that recovery. For me, it was more of a matter of principle that they should have pursued that matter. I offered to do it for them for free myself in person, but they refused to give me the contact details so I could do so.
Did they pay you out? No.
Oh, no, they didn't pay me. No, they paid the claim.
They paid the claim.
They paid the claim for the new garage doors.
Okay.
But the point is that if it hadn't been me, and if it hadn't been my father's garage doors, and if I hadn't reduced those costs by half, then the claim would have been settled at £3,000. And the problem with increased claims costs is that just filters through to increased premiums, which is absolutely no good for anybody.
OK, thanks so much for sharing that with us, James. A really interesting insight. Claire Massey in Stoke-on-Trent. Claire, I know that you had a fire in 2023. Tell us what's happened after that.
Yeah, so I put in a claim in February 2023 and the claim progressed, but the work that was being done on my home to clean my home was substandard. So I asked for a second opinion and I put in a complaint, and when I did that, they withdrew alternative accommodation for me and my 2 children, which left us homeless.
Why did they do that? Did they say?
I don't know. Well, they disputed the cleaning standards, but I was able to prove it through the Ombudsman that what I was saying was correct. So
when you mentioned that word Ombudsman, Claire, let me bring in Sam Richardson, the Deputy Editor of Which, because if you're not happy, Sam, and you can't get your problems resolved, you do have a higher level of complaint to go to, don't you? Tell us about that. That's the Office of the Financial Ombudsman Service.
Yes, certainly. Financial Ombudsman Service can force the insurer to put things right, to pay your claim and get works completed. It's free to go to the FOS, as they're called. You don't need to use a complaints company to do so, which might take some of the money you could get. What I would say is that the FOS is not a solve-all to every insurance problem, because they can take several months to reach a decision. So whilst I'd really recommend people do it, if they can't solve a complaint, the FOS is not going to solve all the problems.
Resort. OK, sorry, Claire, take up your story.
That's OK. So the claim continued after that, and then work started, but then I got accused of misrepresentation, and I was investigated, and then the Friday before Christmas, they voided my policy entirely and stopped paying for accommodation again. And by this point, I was in a rental property. I had to take it to the Ombudsman again, and that took 8 months to investigate. And in that time, I was having to pay for 2 homes.
But you won. You won.
Yeah, I did win. Yeah,
Gosh,
I did win
Claire,
again.
How awful! What an awful thing to happen to you. I mean.
Yeah, so and then after that they started work on my home in January this year, but there's been problems with the kind of the process. I've basically had to project manage it myself, and some of the work that was done again was substandard, which I'm taking cash settlements for now. But this isn't isolated, as Sam said. This is an industry-wide issue. I set up a consumer Facebook group called Claim Guardians, and it's got hundreds of members that are going through a very similar experience to myself. So it isn't isolated, and definitely more needs to be done. I mean, we are home now, but I'm now bearing the costs of putting right a lot of the deterioration that's happened to my home since that time. My home was left unheated for that whole time, and there's been deterioration inside the house, outside the house. I'm having to get remedial works done on the roof. My house is covered in scaffolding at the moment that I've had to bear the costs for. So it doesn't end when you move home either. There's a lot of impact
Claire,
after.
Thanks so much. I'm just going to try and squash 2 more callers in. We've got about 5 minutes left. There's Scott Gates in Glasgow and Joy Hornby in Chester. Scott, your car was hit by a bus, and the point that you want to make is that you feel the insurance company put pressure on you to settle quickly. Tell us why.
Yeah, so basically what happened, I stepped out one lunchtime to run an errand, and I was driving in the car up a hill as it came to a corner, and there was a car parked on my side of the road, so I moved onto the other side of the road to go round the car, and at that time a bus then came down the hill towards me. Oh. Now, I came to a stop and was prepared to reverse back, because obviously I wouldn't expect a bus to reverse, but before I could even get the car in reverse, the bus was going so fast that it couldn't stop, and it basically just came right up beside me. And it was like that scene in Titanic when the ship goes past the iceberg. It was getting closer and closer, and eventually it hit the car, and the bus actually was up on the pavement.
I'm sorry to rush you. I mean, you're telling it beautifully, Scott. You could have written the script for Titanic, but tell us what the problem was, because we're almost out of time.
Yeah, so when I called the insurance company, the agent said, "Oh, do you accept responsibility for the accident then, because you were on the wrong side of the road?" And I said, "No, there's a car on my side of the road, so I was entitled to go on the other side of the road to go round it." And she was most insistent that I was at fault because I was on that wrong side of the road.
Did you sort it out in the end in your favour, Scott, by persisting?
Yeah,
well
eventually
done. Well
the
done.
company accepted responsibility for it. Yeah.
I'm just going to wrap that story there, just so that I can make room for Joy, who's been hanging on a long time. Joy, tell us what happened to you.
Oh, hi. Yes, I have my house insurance with Saga, and about 18 months ago we had a storm, quite a bad one, over Chester, and it blew a hole in my roof at the back, and followed by heavy rain, which came straight through the floor and stained the ceiling of the kitchen below. I phoned my insurer, and they weren't at all happy with this, or my photographs, or my report. My roofing man, who is a lovely man, works locally and runs a business locally, said that this was definitely caused by high winds and damage from other people's roofs, actually. And apparently I didn't reach Saga's criteria, which is so many inches of rain and so many knots of wind to qualify for a claim. I had to chase them constantly, and I rang up one morning, and the woman who normally handled my claim wasn't in. And I spoke to a colleague, and he looked at it, and his actual words were, "I think we're going to have to bite the bullet on this one." And I said, "Thank you, I'm so pleased."
That can make all the difference. And did you get your money in the end?
No, because the call handler rang me back the next morning and said, he made a mistake. We're not paying you out.
Oh, Joy, I'm going to have to stop it there. I'm so sorry to hear that anyway, but thank you for sharing that story with us. That's it for this week's Consumer Phoning, because we're out of time. We had loads and loads of calls about insurance. It's a subject we're going to have to come back to, obviously. And thank you too for Sam Richardson from Which for being our expert guest today. Thank you everyone who got in touch. I probably already said that. Tomorrow we're talking about household clutter with Good Housekeeping. They have a new decluttering guide, as if we need another